Yeah. You did it. That was yours. Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and stop there. All right. Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. The Court of Appeals of the Fourth Appellate Judicial District is now open pursuant to call.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good afternoon. Good afternoon on behalf of the Fourth Court of Appeals. Today we conduct a memorial service for Mr. John Eugene Clark. Our first memorial was held in this court in February of 2001 when we remembered and honored the life of a retired Chief Justice Carlos Cadena. Together with Chief Justice Blair Reeves, both are the namesake of the building that we now sit in, the Cadena Reeves Justice Center, where the Fourth Court now sits and holds court. On November 4th, 2021, just after COVID, during COVID, we first streamed our court memorials to continue the tradition despite a global pandemic. And so we now are able to invite a greater audience via our live stream on the Fourth Corp's, can't say I'm saying it, our YouTube channel. So greetings to our virtual audience, which includes very often many members of the bench and bar, along with family and friends who join us today here in the courtroom to celebrate again the life and contributions of Gene Clark. We host these memorials in partnership with the San Antonio Bar Association, and the purpose of these memorials is twofold. It is intended first to honor the memory of judges and attorneys whose lives serve as an example to other members of our profession. And in doing so, we inspire ourselves and promote professionalism and an appreciation for how our skills and talents help to serve others. A second purpose of these services is to promote our legal fraternity, as honoring the lives of our esteemed colleagues like Mr. Clark gives us all deeper roots within our legal community. If I may, starting on my far right, introduce the members of the Fourth Court of Appeals, Justice Elisa Rodriguez to my far right, to my immediate right, Justice Irene Rios, to my left, Justice Beth Watkins, and to my far left, Justice Lori Valenzuela. I'd like to also then introduce the families of Mr. Clark who are in attendance today. Those include Mrs. Carolyn Clark, sons John Clark, Charles Clark, and wife Millie, daughters Leslie Sarturi and husband Michael, Karen Cork and husband Adam, who was unable to attend today, as well as a cousin, Don Gray, along with all the grandchildren, all live out of town, and possibly some are on live stream this afternoon. Grandsons Matthew Sarturi and wife Carly, Reed Sarturi and wife Bianca, granddaughter Hannah Sarturi Messerly, forgive my slaughter of that name, and husband Blake, and 7 great-grandchildren ranging in ages from 1 to 11 years old. At this time, I'd like to invite and introduce a speaker on behalf of the family who's been invited to come. I'll invite them up to the podium to say a few words on behalf of the family, and that would be Leslie Sartori. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Justices, thank you so much for this opportunity to do this for my dad. My dad's the speaker in the family, not me. I teach preschool and kindergarten, so I play with kids. So, but when we started talking about doing this and decided that, yes, we really wanted to do this, my dad really, really loved his career, and everybody should be so lucky to love their career. He embraced it like a vacation, and he was really good at it too. He had a very long, distinguished career, and everybody, most people know about that. But I found when we're going through the house and cleaning it out and downsizing drastically, and I'm pulling all these books off, and I get to these 2 books. What is this? Why would you save this book? And I looked at it, and the book is a Graves Daughtery book of the memories of the first 50 years. Why would you save this? Okay, you must be in it. So I look in it and find him in there. And he joined that firm in 1966. And I was reading through it, thinking, I have got to find something that I can say or talk about about him. And I came to this, and he wrote this, so I'm going to just read it to you. In 1981, I was appointed to the Fourth Court of Appeals, where I served until January 1st, 1983, not having won the election in 1982. Bill Clements and I both lost in 1982. I was the first Republican who ever served on the San Antonio Court of Appeals. There were vacancies created because in 1981, the jurisdiction of the court was expanded to include criminal cases. This court was expanded from 3 members to 7, and the governor appointed 3 Democrats and me. I used to kid people about being the Bill Clements token Republican on the Fourth Court of Appeals. So I said, oh, thanks, Dad. Appreciate that. I remember him being on this court. One of the really most wonderful things I think that he got out of this court for the remainder of a whole lot of years was his really good friendship and personal relationship with the Chief Justice, Carlos Cadena. They had such a good friendship, and I would hear him talking and they would be laughing on the phone to each other. And it was a friendship that went on for a very long time. In spite of the fact that one was a Democrat and one was a Republican, they got along like a couple of brothers, and it was wonderful. So that was something really good. Personally, my dad kept his personal life very separate from his business life. And so much so that there were a lot of people who had never heard the name Gene, Gene. His middle name is Eugene. And at his funeral in February, my brother referred to him as Gene. And there were people who said, well, who is that? He kept that so separate, and his personal life did not leak into his business life, other than probably to talk about his kids or whatever they were doing. But he never let his business life get in the way of our family life. There was a very hard and fast line that he did not cross. If it was family life, then that's what we were doing, and everything else was not important. So a few things about him. Probably nobody knows that he has been scuba diving. They went on a vacation in the Virgin Islands, and my brother lives there. And my mother and dad grew up in an era where they had polio, and so nobody learned how to swim. And he never did learn how to swim. But when they were down in the VI, John said, well, y'all want to go scuba diving? And he said, I don't know how to swim. And he said, that's okay. There's a picture up here of them scuba diving. He liked the outdoors. He did a lot of hiking. We went to Colorado and did a lot of hiking. He enjoyed photography, outdoors. He did a lot of traveling. He was an avid golfer. He loved UT football. We trekked to Austin, I don't know how many times, to go and watch games with 100,000 other people, and then it didn't faze him in the least. He loved gardening, and his grandmother taught him a love of gardening. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the paper airplanes. He was a champion paper airplane maker. He actually won a contest at the Department of Justice back in the early 70s when they were flying paper airplanes, and they were all trying to see which one would make it the furthest in the courtyard. They actually got in trouble for doing it because I think they went into an office they weren't supposed to fly them off. And I guess it landed on a car that it wasn't supposed to at the bottom of the hill, and it's a paper airplane on a car, but I guess that didn't go very well, but he won the contest. And there are people who still remember that. There were several who came up after the funeral and were telling me funny stories about the paper airplanes. He taught all of us how to fold them and fly them, and you had to fly them. You had to do it just right. And he taught all of my kids how to do them, and then he started teaching the great-grandchildren how to fold the paper airplanes too. That was a big deal. He was an author. He wrote the book, The Fall of the Duke of Duval. He was the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas, and back in 75, Gerald Ford appointed him, and they ended up prosecuting them, and he wrote a book about it, and it was published, and it's still out. He was working on another book about his great-great-grandfather who was on the first Board of Regents at UT, which was very important to him, and I think we're going to try to finish that. The most important one that the kids really want, my dad would tell us Fred Camel stories to go to bed at night. And we kept telling him, why don't you put him in a book, put him in a book? And he's like, yeah. Well, come to find out, in going through all his papers, he had started that book. So we're going to figure out how to finish that book too. And we happen to have a couple of illustrators in the family, so we'll be able to draw some pictures, and we'll have some Fred Camel stories to pass along to some fun kids at someday. I'm trying to figure out how to wrap things up. I don't really know how to do that because it's still kind of not real that he's gone. And we've gone through lots of photographs and lots of pictures, and we have lots of great memories. It's fitting to have this here towards the end of the year. His headstone is going to be placed probably in the next couple of weeks in Austin at Oakwood Cemetery. So maybe this is the stepping stones at the end of the year now, because it was pretty rough at the beginning of the year. So, but thank you all for being here, and really appreciate it. And thanks for honoring my dad.
Thank you. Yeah. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize former members of the Fourth Court who are also in attendance today, who I suspect were also very close to Gene Clark. First, I'll recognize Justice Paul Green, former Justice Paul Green, Chief Justice Sandy Bryan Marion sitting back there, along with now Judge Marilyn Bernard. For those of you, their portraits are hung just outside this courtroom, so we're delighted to have them. Certainly, I would invite either one of you three who would like to, at least, you're invited to the podium if you wish to say a few words. Justice Green or Chief Justice Marion or Bernard, please, you're invited. Please come.
Maybe just the three of us. At the last probably 25 years of his life, these guys worked together. I let him down here and work, but it was an honor to know him and to work with him. And I was just lucky to have one with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I myself had the pleasure of meeting him when he was the recipient, we chose, from the board of the San Antonio Bar Association. He was the recipient of the Joe Fraser Brown Award in 2013. My first year actually on this bench, and I was always delighted to see him at bar functions. He was a very active member of the bar. And so whenever I was able to cross paths with him, it was always a delight. He was always generous with both his time and advice and guidance. And I will always treasure those conversations I've had with him just at any time in this courthouse or at a bar function. It was just always a delight to visit, even in small snippets of time. And I truly appreciate that. I would invite, if there's, I don't believe there's anyone, but if anyone would like to say any words on behalf of themselves, very good. Then I would at this time invite Nick Wynn on behalf of the San Antonio Bar Association.
Madam Chief Justice, members of the court, friends and family of Mr. Clark. My name is Nick Gwynn. I'm the president-elect of the San Antonio Bar Association, and I'm honored to be here with you today to read a resolution of the Bar Association regarding your father and friend, Mr. Gene Clark. Whereas John Eugene Gene Clark, a beloved member of the San Antonio Bar Association, was born June 8, 1933 in Austin, Texas, to Marion May Gray and Charles Carroll Clark. and passed away peacefully on February 13th, 2024. Whereas John graduated from Lamar University in 1954. After a 2-year tour of active duty with the United States Army in the Far East, John graduated from the University of Texas Law School with an LLB in 1961 and was an enthusiastic lifelong member of the Texas Exes. He was a proud and active member of the American Bar Association, the State Bar of Texas, and the San Antonio Bar Association. In 2012, he was honored by his colleagues and peers with the San Antonio Bar Association's Joe Frazier Brown Senior Award of Excellence for lifetime achievement in the practice of law. Whereas John was a true public servant and in 1969 was appointed to the United States Department of Justice, serving in the Criminal Division in Washington, D.C. Returning to Texas in 1971, he served the next 4 years as First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas, and in 1975, President Gerald Ford appointed Clark as the U.S. Attorney. In 1981, Texas Governor William P. Clements Jr. appointed him to the state's Fourth Court of Appeals. Between his public appointments, he was in private practice and gained a reputation as an expert in anti-fraud litigation. Whereas John's biggest pride was his family. He enjoyed family gatherings, vacations, and travel. He loved the University of Texas football, baseball, and golf. He inherited a love for photography from his grandfather, and he passed that love on to his children. He was an extraordinary and prolific writer and avid fisherman. Whereas John is survived by his adoring wife, Carolyn Tevis Clark, his children, Karen C. Cork, Leslie C. Sartori, and Charles W. Clark. Grandchildren Matthew A. Sartori, Reed C. Sartori, and Hannah S. Meserly. Great-grandchildren Gerard M. Sartori, Catherine R. Sartori, Maya N. Sartori, Tara R. Sartori, Hunter C. Meserly, Audrey C. Sartori, and Olivia Carolyn Meserly. Sister and brother-in-law Edith L. Clark and John Schneider, cousin Don Gray, brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Ronald and Alice Tevis and Nancy Scott, and numerous nieces and nephew. Be it resolved that the San Antonio Bar Association and the Fourth Court of Appeals of Texas express their genuine regret on the death of John Eugene Clark and express their sincerest sympathy to his family and friends. Be it further resolved that this resolution be appended to the minutes of the San Antonio Bar Association and copies sent to his family. Be it further resolved that this resolution be placed in the permanent records and minutes of the Fourth Court of Appeals of Texas, dated this 7th of November, 2024. At the conclusion of the ceremony, we'll present a copy of this resolution to the family.
Thank you, Nick. And it is so ordered that the resolution be placed in the minutes of the court. Each memorial service is recorded by a court reporter and later transcribed, a copy of which will also be presented to the surviving members of the family and also entered into the formal minutes of the Fourth Court of Appeals. Hoffman Reporting and Video Service has and continues to donate their services for this purpose. They volunteer their time and donate their services for all of these memorial services. So please join me in a round of applause to express our gratitude. And today we have court reporter Karen DeLeon, as well as Stefan Martinez, our videographer. So thank you both. At this time, we conclude our court memorial services, and I will close the courtroom in honor of Mr. Clark. For the rest of the day, the family and friends are here welcome to enjoy the company of each other here in this courtroom for your benefit, and we look forward to visiting with you as we adjourn. And I get to enjoy some of the snorkeling or scuba diving pictures that I have yet to see, but I look forward to. So thank you very much. And these services are concluded. Goodbye to our visual audience. Thank you.